Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge cycling podcast with Benji Naesen. Today, our 2020 season preview for SD Worx 2021. You may have known them as Bulls Dolmans last year. They've changed name. I think Bulls Dolmans are still sponsoring the team in some capacity. They're a Dutch team. Benji, what is Bulls Dolmans? What is an SD Worx? It's a Dutch company, both of them, I assume.
Honestly, I don't know what Bulls Dolmans is either. I've got no history with that brand. It's a Dutch brand. I know what SD Worx is. I use it at my workplace. They basically have a website where employees need to fill in when they want to have holidays, and also you get your pay slips through there. So it's kind of a web-based platform for a HR business, I would say. So yeah, I think the team can use that, but I also often doubt why certain companies go into sponsorships, but we've spoken about that quite a few times already, I think.
Yeah, just doesn't really make sense to me too much. You know how this works by now. 2020 season review, transfers, some retirements on the books as well for SD Worx, as well as picking their Cobbled Team, probably their puncher team for Liège Flesh, and their Giro Rosa team. And I guess the course team, I mean, it'll pick itself. I think it'll be pretty self-evident with this team. So there's no 3 Grand Tours, unfortunately, for the women. But the Giro Rosa is their main, their main stage race. And I'm not sure there'll be too many American stage races that they'll be able to go to either, or even the British Tour, the OVO Energy one in Britain. That's usually pretty good for the women. I think that might have already been suspended, or the Tour of Yorkshire. But anyway, on to their 2020 season. 11 wins. They were, in my view, the best team in the world. They just so consistent across different riders. I think pretty obvious is Anna van der Breggen, who was the best female rider in the world. We gave her that honour, I think. And also we gave Chantal van den Broek-Black the best cobbler, I think, Benji. I think that's, well, I did at least. Or she was definitely in our both of our top 3. 11 wins, 4 at World Tour level. You got to remember that the women had a lot of races cancelled last year as well. They took Flesh, Tour of Flanders, Gent-Wevelgem, and Le Samin, as well as the Giro Rosa GC. Pretty dominant, Benji. What was the standout from Bulls last year that really, how would you describe the team in a sentence?
In one sentence, that's a difficult one, but all in all, the team is really strong overall, has a lot of riders that they can perform with on certain types of terrains. But the difference with other teams is that they have someone that completely is better than the rest, and that is Anna van der Breggen. And like you say, she can take the victories like mad. And that's more than one sentence, but I'll keep going. I don't care. I think the difference between Bulls Dolmans, or SD Worx right now, and Trek Segafredo Women is that those teams are both the top 2 teams, in my opinion, of women's cycling at the moment. And the only rider that they don't have that is above everybody's league as well is Annemiek van Vleuten. But all in all, those 2 teams, the difference between them is defined by their best rider for me. And Anna van der Breggen makes that difference for me. She was the best rider in 2020. She's likely going to be one of the best in 2021. And I think if you look at the victories, the majority of the victories are brought in by her and Chantal van den Broek-Black, who, like you say, is indeed the best cobbler out there at the moment. She won both Le Samet and also Ronde van Vlaanderen. Le Samet being a race that on the women's calendar is more cobbly than on the men's calendar. So people that come from more of men's cycling and dive into women's cycling might think Le Samet is super easy, cobble sprint, easy. But that's not the case here. It's a much harder parkour, in my honest opinion. So still a very, very worthy performance in my thoughts. But the one victory that I always think is, despite the race not being too entertaining for the first few kilometers, Flesh Wallon, the way Anna van der Breggen can just climb up that hill and take it with the team just controlling the race the entire time, yeah, that's pretty mad for me. But obviously it's not the most entertaining race to watch all throughout, I guess.
They also had a top 3 sprinter, or they still have her on the team, Julianne Dore in the world. She won Hent Wevelgem, but she didn't have a great season, just the one victory, although it was a nice win. I think Lotte Kopecky and Lorena Wiebes showed that they were slightly better than Julianne Dore last year. So, yeah, best team in the world. We're going to decide whether they can continue that in 2021. And going to their transfers, I think it's very likely that they will be able to. So, outgoing riders, Katie Hall, the American, and Skylar Schneider. I think Skylar Schneider's joined like the Legion team. I'm not sure whether it's like the Conti one or the other one, and she's racing domestically. I think Katie Hall's doing something else. Emily Diedrichsen, former world champion, has gone to Trek Segafredo, the Dane, who she's still quite young, but she's just not. She didn't perform that well last year, to be honest. And Jip van den Bos has gone to Team Jumbo Visma, and Eva Berman to Team Tibco, Silicon Valley Bank. So not too many wins going out the door, but some big riders coming in. So the newly crowned Zwift world champion, Ashley Millman, South African, Ashley Millman Pazio rather, coming over from CCC, Elena Cecchini from Canyon Tram, good all-round rider, the Italian. Roxanne Fournier seems to be quite versatile. I think she'll be a domestique. But the big ones, in my view, are Demi Follering from Park Hotel Valkenburg and Neve Fisher-Black from a Keep Paul car. And the other two are, Nicola Noskova and Anna Shackley, who I think is a young British rider. I haven't really seen too much of her. But Follering, Benji, what sort of rider is she? And what do you think the plan is for her at SD Worx?
I think she's a healthy combination between climbing, but mostly the punching side. I think the moment that I realized, she's really on top of her game here was Flèche Wallonne last year, where she was basically the only rider that could keep up next to Anna van der Breggen on the Mur de Huy. In the end, she ended up third, if I recall correctly. But all in all, throughout the season, also some proper results in, I think, was it La Course? Yes, it was La Course being third there. That ended up in a bit of a sprint. But all in all, very consistent. Came from Park Hotel, not the strongest team in block, so she didn't have the best support all out. I think Hannah Nilsson was like the rider that in La Course was helping her out to the best of her abilities. And she's also pretty good at cobbles, I'd say, because Tour of Flanders 7th, Gent-Wevelgem 7th. So a bit of an all-rounder like you see on many occasions. Giro dell'Emilia 16th. It's like whatever she races, she can get a top 25, as she proves last year. The only race she didn't top 25 was the World Championships. And, that was a massive race as well. But she probably didn't have her best day there because I'd expect her to do better. Although she's not leader if she's at the Dutch national team.
I mean, you got to forgive the other Dutch riders on the women's team in the sort of world and European championships if they're not Van Vleuten or Van der Breggen. They're probably justifiably having to work for one of those two. I think they want her to replace Van der Breggen. So now that's a tall order, and she's not going to be at Van der Breggen's level next year either. But Van der Breggen said she's retiring at the end of this year. Hopefully, if the Olympics go ahead. If the Olympics don't go ahead, she might postpone it. She really wants to go for gold in Tokyo. And then she's going to become a director sportif, I think, at SD Worx next year.
Yep.
So I think the plan is for Demi Follering to fill that gap and to be that rider. She's 24 years old, as you said, Benji, not been on the strongest team, shown a lot of consistency. And if she just is on a better team, she's surrounded in these races by Chantal van den Broek-Black, Amy Peters in Tour of Flanders, etc., and maybe kept a little bit safer in Flèche by. I think if Van der Breggen hadn't been there at Flèche, I think she would have won. It was only because Van der Breggen clawed her back on Mur de Huy. So I think that's the plan. They're going to get her, just competing as their leader in a lot of races, except maybe the all-out cobbled ones. But SD Worx remind me a lot of Sunweb actually in races like Tour of Flanders. In races like Tour of Flanders, they definitely just don't have like a set leader. They will just attack with like roll attacks because they'll always get three. It's like Quickstep as well. They get three riders in a group of 7. Amy Peters, Van der Breggen, Chantal Van den Broek Black, and then they'll just roll attacks, and then one will stick and they'll win. And that's what happened with Flanders. So I think Vollering will fit in there, and then she'll be out and out leader at races that are hillier, like La Course, Flèche, Liège, and maybe Strade. Do you think do you see that talent level as possible for her, Benji, or you think she's not? That's not what FC Worx are going to do with her.
I think she's the strongest transfer that came in at this very moment. Of course, Neve Fisher Black. Is that how you pronounce it? Neve?
Neve, yeah.
Okay, that's so not how I read that, but okay. I think she's the younger type that they got in, and that Neve could grow potentially a lot as well, because obviously she's 20. She came 12th at La Flèche and so forth. So she's also one of those riders that fits in that same bracket of climbing punchy. Less when it comes to the cobbles at this very moment. Perhaps in the future that changes, but 64th at Gent Wevelgem and so forth. It's not like it's the biggest result there. So I think her focus will lie more on the climbing and the punching. And she's got 4 more years to try and grow into what Vollering is currently at. And I think the combination of all these different talents that they've got on this type of terrain means that they can really win almost every edition of this race at this very moment. Anna van der Breggen won it 7 times, La Flèche Wallonne. So she'll likely try and win it an 8th time this year.
Yeah, that's
I think,
crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy that they're going to have Vollering and Van der Breggen in the same team in races like Strade, La Course, Flèche, Liège.
yeah.
That's just, and then Chicane and Mulman in there. Mulman was a very strong domestique last year. I mean, she came 6th herself in Flèche, but
Yeah.
she was consistent in Giro Rosa, but I think she was working mainly for Vos at CCC, and sometimes she actually beat Vos in the punchy finishes. Vos didn't have her best Giro Rosa. But yeah, I think Milan Pasio will be mainly a helper, and they want Vollering to be the star and see how Neve Fisher Black goes. The other transfers, Chicane, I think helper as well. Fournier, mostly the same, and Noskova again is one of, and Shackley are more talent signings, 19 and 23 years old. I don't think there'll be too much pressure on them. But they haven't really stocked up the cobbles too much, I think, except for Roxanne Fournier. She's on a 1-year deal. I think she looks like she's a cobbled style rider, but I think she'll just be helping. And they didn't really need to. And you got Amy Peters, you got Julian Dor, you got Van der Breggen, and you got Chantal Van der Black. You don't really need to do too much to your cobble team
Yeah.
for the Belgian races. I mean, if it's not too hard, Julian Dor's going for the sprint. And if it's a little bit harder, then that's even better for the other 3 that of that 4. So the transfers, and yeah, Julian Dor and Van der Breggen retiring at the end of this year. And it's really sad. I do think it's really sad. I mean, I'm not sure whether it's a money thing or a lifestyle balance thing for Van der Breggen, but she's only 30 years old, and she was the best rider in the world last year. This just wouldn't happen. Just straight up wouldn't happen in the men's in men's cycling. Could you imagine, Benji, if 30-year-old Froome, like how if he just won like 3 Tour de France in a row and etc. Was like, nah, just hanging it up to be a DS. It just, or Sagan in like 2015, or maybe Sagan might retire early. Actually, he's only 30 or 31. But yeah, it's a shame. She has been riding it at World Tour level for like 10, 11 years. So she's had a pretty long career. She's been in the top 10 for like in world rankings for almost 9 of those 10 years. But yeah, I think good for her that she's got a job lined up afterwards. But I'd love to see her keep racing because there's a lot of young talent coming through, and it would have been great to see them go head to head. But anyway, we've still got the 1
I
year
think
left.
it's
Yeah.
I think it's also just a difficult situation because like we I came from men's cycling as like the sport I watched first, and then I dove into women's cycling. And the first thing you don't realize is that in men's cycling, if Richie Porte has a kid and he wants to race a Tour de France, he can race a Tour de France and fly back the day before his kid is born. You can't do that
Or
if
skip
you're
it.
a female cyclist. What? Sorry?
Or
Yeah,
skip
or
it.
skip it. Yeah, certain riders do skip their kids being born, and like female cycling, that's obviously impossible biologically. So I think all in all, that's an aspect that is often overseen when it comes to potential early retirements or stuff like that. I think Lizzie Deignan was one of the riders that had a
Yeah, she,
kid during
yeah,
her career,
yeah,
was
she
off the
came.
bike for like a year or something, or
Yeah,
I don't know how long.
that's correct.
Then she had to come back afterwards. So yeah, I think it's a situation that we can't really look at from our position. Yeah, I'm. That's kind of something I wanted to add.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I sort of meant by the life balance thing as well. With being a DS, maybe you're being paid a reasonable amount, and it's not that much different. It probably will be a pay cut, but it allows you to be at home and just so much better work like lifestyle balance as well. Um,
Yeah.
whereas if you're a male rider, top of the game, you're getting paid 4 or 5 mil euro. That's enough to support both people in your household very easily, and um, DS don't get paid 4 or 5 million euro. I don't think Lefebvre. Maybe Lefebvre pays himself that, Benji, and that's why the other they're all on 70K. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But I just wanted to make note of that as well, just to note that it is unusual, and maybe as there's more money comes into women's cycling, which is going to happen and is happening. We will see riders like Van der Breggen having longer careers or even longer careers. But anyway, that's their 2020 season. That's their transfers. 2021, let's pick their Cobbled Team first, Benji, and let's delineate between Gent-Wevelgem and maybe some of the sprintier ones and the all-out cobbles like Tour of Flanders and the first women's Paris Roubaix this year, which is a big deal as well. So all-out cobbles, who are you picking, Benji?
So as leader, I'd go for the rider that won last year, Chantal van der Broek-Blaak, best cobbler out there at the moment, in my honest opinion. But like we've said it a few times, this team can send a good amount of riders to the race that also have opportunities to take home the victory if the situation is right. So they can keep on attacking until one sticks, like you mentioned. I think that's gonna be the strategy they take on in races like Tour of Flanders. In something like Gent-Wevelgem, they can try and attack with someone like Van der Broek-Blaak, but in the end, if it comes down to a sprint, Jolien Dore can take care of it. She did it this year, and I think that's the distinction you can make between those types of races, the ones with the sprint at the end that could lead towards Jolien Dore taking it, while the others would be won by someone that is more situated on the real cobble sections. And I think Vollering would also need to be there. She was
Yeah,
seventh in
yeah,
Tour of Flanders. Perhaps Amy Peters in the team as well, I think, because she was
100%.
second, I think.
Yeah, so
But she'd also a decent lead out, right?
yeah, Amy Peters is good for just all around. Like if it comes down to a sprint, she'll be there to lead out, closing down attacks. I remember her doing that to Trek Segafredo at the end of a race last year, maybe on a couple of occasions. So yeah, Julianne Dora, I'd have her in the Roubaix team as well, Benji.
Yep.
As Ludwig said on the podcast with us, we don't know what Roubaix is going to look like. What if it's just a group at the end? Um, like
That'd be
we
so
like
anticlimactic.
I know, but a reduced group. What if Julianne Dole's good at Roubaix? She could be. So yeah, I would take Van der Broek, Black, Van der Breggen, Vollering, Peters, Moolman, Fournier, Julianne Dore, and if there's another space, probably Cicchini to all of the cold races, and then vary a leader or have Dore sprinting depending on the race situation. For Flesh and for the Ardennes now, very similar. The leaders, I think, are clearly Vollering and Van der Breggen. I would also then bring in that team Shackley, Noskova, Mullman again, and Neve Fisher Black, and probably Cicchini. I'd leave off Julianne Dore. And yeah, Neve Fisher Black, see how she goes. Maybe put her in a break. She did quite well, I think, in a break in the Giro Rosa stage last year, came second, which was quite a good result for the 20-year-old. And also Noskova, maybe, if there's space. You have any changes to the Ardennes team, Benji? How do you think they're going to use Van der Breggen and Vollering?
It depends on which one you're talking about regarding the races. You've got obviously the likes of a Flèche Wallonne on which you can basically set up Van der Breggen and try and launch her at the end. Vollering can it's difficult there because you can have like two leaders there, Vollering and obviously Van der Breggen. But I think on paper Van der Breggen is clear leader there. So you would put Vollering just ahead of the likes of Van der Breggen and try and launch Van der Breggen with Vollering, unless the day is bad for one of those, and on the day the foam is not like that. But with LBL, you can play it a bit more differently. You can try and use someone to set up a bit of an attack, because you've got LBL that has climbs but finish in Liège. So in the end, a smaller group could ride away, and we saw that with, I think, Grace Brown. Didn't she win Liège Bastogne Liège? Or
No, she won. She came second in Liège behind Diagnan. I thought Grace
oh
Brown
yeah,
won.
yeah, yeah.
She won Brabantse Pijl.
Those early attacks like Lizzie Dignan did, stuff like that, you can do with this team, because you always have other options behind them. There's just so many extra riders you got. And the team you set, exactly how I would do it: Molman, Noskova, Van der Breggen, Vollering. But regarding perhaps a race we didn't specifically talk about, Strade Bianche, I'd put the Canadian in there as well, Caroline Canwell, because, well, she was ninth there last season, and she's pretty good at that terrain. I'm not sure whether that's because she's decent at the sandy aspect of it or the hill aspect of it. I think it's a combination of both. And if there's a space left, then I think she could fit in the Ardennes team as well.
And maybe Roubaix. She seems to be a decent time trialist. Maybe Roubaix. She could be pretty good as well, experienced. That's not a bad idea either.
Yep,
Might put her in
good
instead of
point.
Cicchini. So on to the Giro Rosa. Lacour's team, I think it's going to be similar to their Liège team as well. Van der Breggen and Vollering as leaders. No differences there in my view. Giro Rosa depends on the parcours. Well, the Giro Rosa is not it's not a world tour race anymore, Benji. So I don't know how that
Yeah,
this year. I don't know how that's going to
same.
affect whether they care about it as much. Like, what do you think? No, seriously,
I
'cause
don't know. It's
we've
like,
got we've got Tour de France coming next year for the women, and it'll be a proper, like, I think 6 to 8 stage race. So do they care about the Giro Rosa?
I think this year is the one year where it will still be seen as the Grand Tour for female cycling, because outside of this race, you've got quite a few stage races, but nothing like the Giro Rosa. And if that changes next year with that female Tour de France, if that happens, I hope it does. They pretty much confirmed it, but you never know; something might happen in between now and then. I think with the Giro Rosa,
No, they confirmed it for me
ah,
personally.
okay, okay. Giro Rosa in 2021 is going to still be that race that it was before. The fact that it's not a world tour race anymore, yeah, like, in all honesty, it wasn't presenting anything like World Tour anyway. Like, it wasn't broadcasting it the way a World Tour race would be doing. So, is it changing anything from the outside? Probably not. Is it changing anything for the organization? Probably financially. So, yeah, I think the riders won't bother too much about the switch in the vision for this race in 2021. Personally,
Well,
and when it comes to the team for that,
Van der
yeah, sorry,
Breggen's not Van der Breggen's not going because
really,
it finishes on the 11th of July, and the Olympics starts on the 23rd of July. So that's
yep,
less than 14 days, and I don't think Van der Breggen gives two shits about the Giro Rosa compared to like the Olympic gold is what she wants this year. That's why she hasn't
yeah.
retired yet. I think she was supposed to retire last year, and she's clearly not going to jeopardize that with the Giro Rosa, which probably won't even be televised. So I think she'll skip it, and they'll give opportunities to Neve Fisher Black. Probably, I don't know who's going to go with in the Dutch team too. Maybe then the Vollering and Vandenbroek Black will be in the Dutch team as well, so that they'll send like a really young squad. And then Mulm and Passio will
Yeah,
probably want to go to the Olympics for South Africa, so maybe they'll have a really young team like and
Jolien Door for Belgium for track, right?
Cicchini for Italy. So maybe Neve Fisher Black will be their leader in the Giro Rosa, and
We'll have
Noskova
like
and Shackley.
we'll have four women teams at the start of Giro Rosa at this point.
Well, no, now that I'm thinking about it, like all these women on the top level world tour teams are
Yeah,
they're all the leaders of their respective countries. Like Lizzie Banks is going to be there for Britain as long with Diagnan. Surely they would all want to be at the Olympics instead of an untelevised Euro Rosa. So yeah, maybe it really will be, unless there's like confirmed. if you're vaccinated, you can rock up 3 days before, not a problem. Then the Giro Rosa would be a nice preparation for it. But that's something definitely to think about and to mark down as something that could change throughout the season and will definitely affect the Giro Rosa team. So we've kind of not picked a Giro Rosa team. I think it's going to be the youngsters. Do you think it's going to be the youngsters?
I
Or
think
no?
the race is going to be moved. I don't believe they're going to keep it in that date.
Yeah, I mean, how could, because I'm like, oh, they'll send Neve Fisher Black, but then it's like, oh, well, wouldn't Neve Fisher Black be leading New Zealand along with Michaela Harvey at the road race? So,
I
yeah,
recall Von Vleuten saying something along the lines of the race should be moved, but I don't know to what date or I don't know in what form. So yeah, I think we'll have to put this on a hold. But
okay.
yeah, if Giro Rosa was done with these riders available, who would you send?
With all of them available, I would send Van
Yeah,
der Breggen, Vollering, Neve Fisher Black, Jacquini, Noskova, Shackley, and Mullman, and Peters maybe.
okay.
And depending if there's a couple of sprint stages in the parkour, daughter.
Yeah, it obviously depends on the parkour a bit as well, like you say.
If it's
If
all
there's more
uphill,
sprints, you'll
like,
endure, but yeah.
yeah, if it's all uphill and there's one and Weber's going, I probably wouldn't be that enthused about taking daughter.
Yeah, and it's also like, what if it gets moved to like, let's say April? It's on the same days as the cobble races, so then you've got that problem. So
Yeah,
I don't think it's gonna be too easy to move the race either. So all in all, yeah, it's a difficult discussion. I think we're gonna see more of that in the coming weeks because I can't expect the UCI to just skip over the fact that well nobody's gonna be at the Giro Rosa then. Well,
well, it's not a World
UCI
Tour
probably
race
doesn't care,
anymore.
but
Yeah,
yeah, UCI doesn't care anymore, but the organizers will.
I mean the Giro Rosa, it's been a bit shit. They should have the live
Yeah,
streaming last year. But that being said, it's not a big organization that runs that race. I'm pretty sure it's a not for profit. I may be wrong, but it's not like a big nasty corporation that was trying to squeeze profits. Like I think it was just a bad situation, and they didn't know how to make the
handle it.
race economically viable as like the biggest women's stage race. So ASO next year with Women's Tour de France, hope that'll be better, I think. And we've got the Paris Roubaix as a taster for that this year. But on to
Yes.
our predictions, Benji. 11 wins last year. In a full season in 2019, they picked up 18 wins. By the way, they weren't even a World Tour team last year. They were a Conti team, which is outrageous because I don't think they wanted to pay the license. They didn't want to pay the UCI license. So they're just a Conti team, but we're the best team in the world. And they knew they'd just get an invite to every race. So, but anyway, the World Tour team now, which is actually good. That means there's guaranteed salary minimums for their riders, which still is pretty low, but it's moving up, I think, in years to come. But yeah, 18 wins 2019, 11 in 2020 in a shortened season, and like 26 in 2018. I'm setting the over under Benji again at 12 because I'm being a bit cynical about the number of women's races that will be cancelled. So I'm saying 12 wins is the over under.
I think under. And the
Right.
reason I think under is um, currently our view on the Giro Rosa, because if the Giro Rosa gets ridden, then I think they can up that amount. I think the majority of their wins will come from cobble and hill races. So a Flèche Wallonne, perhaps a Paris Roubaix, because that's one of the predictions I'll make, is that I think this team is bringing the winner of Paris Roubaix in 2021.
Yep.
I think the majority will come from those types of races, not necessarily the big old climby stages. Because, well, Annemiek van Vleuten, her arm is probably fixed by now. So it'll be tough to beat her on the real climbs. But yeah, I think it's gonna be under. I don't believe they've. I think they've got the best team still, but I don't think they have an unbeatable team. And
Definitely not.
with the focus of Van der Breggen lying mainly on that Olympics, I think the rest of the race will be on a second degree this year for her, which means that yeah, the drive to win all the races she rides might not be as much as last year.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to do really well at the cobbles coming up, but then there's other riders that have been improving in that aspect as well. Trekker absolutely firing. Van Vleuten's moved
Yep.
over. Vos, new Jumbo Visma women, which we'll all do previews for. I'm going to agree with you under Benji. I'm going to agree. But I think the wins they do get will be top caliber, because I think the main races that will be held will be top caliber races, and they'll be the ones that Besti Works go to. So I think it's going to be like 10 wins, but like 7 of them will be World Tour level or something. I guess it depends, because I'm looking now. Do the Luxembourg National Championships road race and ITT count for Majerus? I guess they do, because it's going to be two guaranteed. But yeah, I'm going with 10 wins overall. Any hot takes, Benji, for SD Works?
If the Giro Rosa gets ridden, they won't win it, but it's not really a hot take with Van Vleuten riding around. Yeah, it's difficult to put up a real hot take. I think Neve Fisher Black will break through properly already.
My hot take is that, yeah, Neve Fisher Black will podium a World Tour race like Liège or Flèche or the Giro Rosa GC. I think she's quite good, 20 years old, improving. I think Van der Breggen won't have as good a year as last year. I think last year was just insane, and as you said, she'll
Yeah.
focus. I don't think Van der Breggen's winning Flèche, and yeah, I think she's not going to win more than one race this year.
Oof.
Yeah, I don't
And
think
which one will it be? Olympics or?
Yeah, I don't think she's winning one race. Sorry, I think she's winning one race on the women's calendar, not including the Olympics.
Okay, which one?
I don't know, but that's not many. One race for her.
That is a hot take. So
that's my hot
I'll
take
give you that.
for Van der Breggen. Nothing against her, obviously. I think she's fantastic. I just think that's just might be what happens with her this year. But that's been our SD Works preview. I hope you enjoyed it. I actually really enjoyed doing this one. It really it's really refreshing for us to think about a different calendar and different riders. I really enjoyed it, actually, because 18 or whatever men's teams, a bit of a grind, and doing the different races the women do is nice, actually. Do you feel the same way, Benji?
Yes, I do, and it's something we wanted to focus on a bit more this year as well, because last year we focused on the races, but a lot of people that watch us are watching it mainly for the men's calendar and the men's races, but also are interested in the women's races. So this might give them a bit of a preview of which riders ride for which team, who can do well at which races, and I think that will help with following the race recaps and previews we do for the big races in their calendar.
Definitely. Hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you with the preview tomorrow of another team. Ciao.